Bullies ripped the quiet girl's shirt. Her spin kick sent them through the desks. Bryn Castellanos kept her head down as she navigated the crowded hallways of Lincoln Memorial High School, her worn canvas messenger bag clutched tightly against her chest. At barely 5 tall, with stick-thin arms and legs that seemed too long for her small frame, she looked like a strong wind could knock her over. Her thick-rimmed glasses constantly slipped down her nose, and her unruly dark hair never seemed to cooperate, no matter how many times she tried to tame it with bobby pins. 3 months into the school year, she had managed to remain virtually invisible to most of her classmates, which was exactly how she preferred it. What none of them knew was that every evening after school, Bryn drove 20 minutes across town to Master Kim's Taekwondo Academy, where she had been training for the past 8 years. Her parents had enrolled her when she was young and awkward, hoping martial arts would give her confidence. Instead, it had given her something far more valuable: discipline, control, and the ability to break boards with her bare hands. Master Kim was a 60-year-old Korean immigrant who had competed in the Olympics before, dedicating his life to teaching. He had seen something in the scrawny 8-year-old Bryn that others missed: a quiet determination and an almost supernatural ability to absorb technique. Under his careful guidance, she had earned her black belt by the time she turned 14, mastering 4 MS that took most students years longer to perfect. Power without control is meaningless, Master Kim would remind her during their private sessions. But control, without the will to use it when necessary, is equally useless. You must learn to recognize when the time for walking away has ended. Those words echoed in her mind now as she navigated the hallways of Lincoln Memorial, her muscles remembering countless hours of practice, the snap of her kicks, the precision of her blocks, the devastating effectiveness of techniques designed to end confrontations quickly and decisively. But at school, she was just the quiet girl who sat in the back corner of every classroom, avoiding eye contact and praying no one would notice her. Unfortunately, someone had noticed. Brett Hawthorne was everything Bryn wasn't: tall, athletic, with the kind of easy confidence that came from being captain of the football team and dating the most popular girl in school. His sandy brown hair was always perfectly styled, and his Letterman jacket announced his status to anyone who might have missed it. He had 2 loyal followers: Jake Morrison, a stocky linebacker who laughed too loudly at Brett's jokes, and Kyle Patterson, whose family's money had bought him a spot in their inner circle, despite his complete lack of personality. The first incident happened on a Tuesday morning near the lockers by the science wing. Bryn was quietly switching out her books when Brett appeared beside her, leaning against the adjacent locker with that smirk she had learned to dread. "Hey there, skeleton girl," he said, using the nickname that had somehow stuck, despite her never acknowledging it. "You know, I was thinking maybe you should eat a sandwich or something. You're making the rest of us look bad." Bryn's jaw clenched, but she kept her eyes focused on her textbooks. Master Kim had always taught his students that the greatest strength came from knowing when not to fight. Violence should be the last resort, he would say, used only when all other options have been exhausted, and only to protect yourself or others who cannot protect themselves. "I'm talking to you," Brett said, his voice taking on an edge. He reached out and slammed her locker shut, causing her to jump back. Jake and Kyle appeared on either side of him, blocking her escape route. "Sorry," Bryn mumbled, shouldering her bag and trying to squeeze past them. Brett stepped into her path, forcing her to stop. "Sorry what?" he demanded. "Sorry, I have to get to class." The 3 boys laughed, and Brett moved aside with exaggerated courtesy. "Of course, wouldn't want you to be late for your advanced calculus or whatever weird smart kid stuff you do." As Bryn hurried away, she could hear their laughter echoing behind her. She ducked into the nearest bathroom and locked herself in a stall, taking deep breaths and repeating the calming mantras Master Kim had taught her. She could handle this. She just had to stay invisible a little longer. But Brett Hawthorne had apparently decided that invisible wasn't an option anymore. The incidents escalated over the following weeks. Brett would accidentally bump into her in the hallways, sending her books flying while muttering fake apologies that fooled the teachers, but not her. Jake would make loud comments about her appearance whenever she passed their table in the cafeteria. "Is that a person or a scarecrow?" he would ask, causing eruptions of laughter from nearby tables. Kyle, ever the follower, would laugh and add his own cruel observations about her clothes, her hair, her posture. The psychological torment was methodical and relentless. They would save seats next to her in classes, only to move away dramatically when she sat down. They spread rumors that she had some kind of contagious skin condition, leading other students to avoid her. Brett even convinced a group of underclassmen that she was mentally unstable, warning them to be careful around the weird girl whenever she was within earshot. Each incident was carefully calculated to stay just below the radar of authority figures. They never did anything that would get them in serious trouble. They were too smart for that. Instead, they perfected the art of plausible deniability, always ready with innocent explanations for their cruelty. Mrs. Henderson, Bryn's English teacher, was too overwhelmed with her classroom of 30 students to notice the subtle torment happening right under her nose. Mr. Garcia, the vice principal, was more concerned with dress code violations and tardiness than with the psychological warfare being waged against one quiet girl. The other students either didn't notice or didn't care enough to intervene. The worst part wasn't the humiliation or even the fear, it was the way it made her question everything Master Kim had taught her. Every fiber of her being wanted to show these boys exactly what she was capable of. But she had been raised to believe that her skills came with responsibility. Using her training against civilians, especially in anger, went against everything she had been taught to value. Oliver's arrival, then Oliver Chen, transferred to Lincoln Memorial. Oliver was an exchange student from California. Tall and lean, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and an easy smile that made Bryn's heart flutter whenever he looked in her direction. His dark hair was perpetually messy from running his hands through it when he concentrated, and he had a habit of wearing vintage band t-shirts that suggested depths beyond his engineering studies. He was studying mechanical engineering and had an infectious enthusiasm for robotics that reminded Bryn why she loved learning. Unlike most of his peers who seemed content with surface-level interactions, Oliver genuinely listened when people spoke and remembered details that others overlooked. More importantly, he was kind to everyone, even to her. The first time she noticed him was in the library, where he was building some kind of elaborate contraption out of cardboard and rubber bands while muttering calculations under his breath. When their eyes met across the study tables, he had smiled and waved a screwdriver at her in greeting, completely unbothered by her startled expression. Most people either ignored her completely or stared with uncomfortable curiosity, but Oliver seemed to see her as simply another person worth knowing. They first spoke in AP Physics, where they were assigned as lab partners for a complex experiment involving pendulum motion. Oliver listened when she explained her calculations, treated her ideas with respect, and even laughed at her awkward attempts at humor. For the first time since starting at Lincoln Memorial, Bryn looked forward to coming to school. "You're really good at this," Oliver said one afternoon as they finished their lab report. "Have you thought about studying engineering in college?" Bryn felt her cheeks warm. "Maybe. I've always been interested in how things work." "We should hang out sometime," Oliver said casually. "There's this great science museum downtown, and they have a new robotics exhibit. I bet you'd love it." Before Bryn could respond, Brett's voice cut through their conversation like a knife. Well, looks like Skeleton Girl found herself a boyfriend." Brett slid into the seat across from them, flanked by Jake and Kyle. "Hope you're not planning anything too physical, dude. She might break." Oliver's expression hardened. "Excuse me?" "Just looking out for you, man," Brett continued with mock concern. "Trust me, you can do way better. I mean, look at her." Bryn's face burned with humiliation as every student in their vicinity turned to stare. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor and never resurface, but Oliver surprised her. "I think Bryn is brilliant," he said firmly, his voice carrying across the silent classroom. "And I think you're an idiot." The room erupted in whispers and nervous laughter. Brett's face darkened, his easy smile disappearing completely. "Watch yourself, transfer boy," he said quietly. "You don't know how things work around here yet." The breaking point from that day forward, Oliver became a target too. It started small. Someone would accidentally spill something on his clothes, or his locker would mysteriously jam, requiring maintenance to come fix it with bolt cutters. His Carefully organized engineering notes would disappear from his backpack, only to resurface days later, scattered around the campus parking lot. Brett was smart enough to know that going after the popular, well-liked transfer student directly would backfire. Oliver had already made friends with several student government members, and while us being courted by multiple academic clubs, a direct assault would bring too much attention and sympathy. Instead, Brett focused his attention on making Bryn's life miserable whenever Oliver was around to see it. The humiliation was designed to drive a wedge between them, to make Oliver associate her with drama and chaos. Brett wanted Oliver to see her as a liability, someone whose friendship would only bring trouble. The breaking point came on a Friday afternoon in the cafeteria. Bryn was sitting alone at her usual table in the corner, picking at a turkey sandwich while reading ahead in her chemistry textbook. Oliver had stayed after class to talk to their physics teacher about an upcoming project, so she was by herself when Brett and his friends approached. "Hey, skeleton girl," Brett said, sliding into the seat across from her. "Where's your boyfriend?" "He's not my boyfriend," Bryn said quietly, not looking up from her book. "Good thing," Jake laughed. "Can you imagine? Poor guy would probably snap her in half." Kyle snorted. "If he could even find anything to grab onto." Bryn closed her book and started to stand, but Brett was faster. He reached across the table and grabbed her wrist, his grip tight enough to bruise. "Sit down," he commanded. "We're not done talking." "Let go of me," Bryn said, her voice barely above a whisper. Around them, the cafeteria buzzed with conversation, but no one was paying attention to their corner table. "Or what?" Brett challenged. "You'll tell on us? File a report. Face it, nobody cares about you." That's when Oliver appeared. "Get your hands off her," he said, his voice deadly calm. Brett looked up with that familiar smirk. "Make me, transfer boy." Oliver stepped forward, and Bryn saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. But before he could do anything, Brett made his move. In one swift motion, he reached out and grabbed the front of Bryn's shirt, yanking hard. The thin cotton fabric tore with a loud ripping sound, exposing her worn sports bra to half the cafeteria. The room fell silent, except for the sound of Jake and Kyle's cruel laughter. Bryn's hands flew to cover herself, her face burning with humiliation as she felt dozens of eyes staring at her. Someone in the crowd pulled out their phone, and she knew this moment would be preserved forever on social media. "Oops," Brett said with mock innocence. "Guess that shirt was as fragile as you are." Oliver lunged forward, but Bryn caught his arm. Through her shame and anger, she could see the fury in his eyes, and she knew that if he fought Brett now, he would be the one who got in trouble. Brett was counting on it. "Don't," she whispered. "Please." Oliver hesitated, and in that moment of hesitation, Bryn made her decision. 8 years of training had taught her many things, but the most important lesson wasn't about kicks or punches or board breaking. It was about recognizing the moment when walking away was no longer an option. Master Kim had always said that martial arts should only be used to protect yourself or others who couldn't protect themselves. Looking around the cafeteria at the faces of her classmates, some laughing, some recording, none helping, she realized that she was the only one who could protect herself and Oliver. "You want to see fragile?" she asked, her voice carrying across the silent cafeteria as she slowly stood up. Brett was still smirking when Bryn's foot connected with his chest. The spin kick was perfect textbook form that would have made Master Kim proud. Her body moved with the fluid precision of 8 years of dedicated training, muscle memory taking over as her right foot traced a devastating arc through the air. The impact sent shockwaves through Brett's body as her shin connected with his sternum, the force of the blow amplified by the rotational power of her entire frame. Brett's chair tilted backward and crashed to the floor with a tremendous clatter, sending him sliding across the linoleum until he slammed into the next table over with enough force to rattle the entire cafeteria. Students scattered as plastic trays and half-eaten lunches went flying. Jake rushed forward to help his friend, his face contorted with rage and disbelief, but Bryn was already moving. Years of sparring had taught her to fight multiple opponents, to flow from one technique to the next without pause or hesitation. A quick sidestep brought her inside Jake's guard, and her elbow found his solar plexus with surgical precision. The air rushed out of his lungs in a painful whoosh as he dropped to his knees, gasping like a fish out of water and clutching his chest. Kyle, showing more intelligence than usual, raised his hands in surrender. "Hey, I didn't do anything." "You laughed," Bryn said simply, and swept his legs out from under him. The entire sequence had taken less than 30 seconds. Brett was struggling to sit up, his Letterman jacket torn and his perfect hair disheveled. Jake was still on his knees, trying to catch his breath. Kyle was flat on his back, staring at the ceiling in shock. Bryn walked over to where Brett was attempting to stand and crouched down beside him. For a moment, she saw real fear in his eyes. The fear of someone who had just realized they had catastrophically misjudged their opponent. "I could break your ribs right now," she said quietly, her voice calm and controlled. "I could dislocate your shoulder, or hyperextend your knee, or do any number of things that would put you in the hospital. Do you know why I'm not going to do that?" Brett shook his head, unable to speak. "Because I'm not you," Bryn said. She stood up and looked around the cafeteria, where every single person was staring at her in stunned silence. "I'm not going to hurt someone just because I can." She turned to help Oliver, who was holding out her jacket with a mixture of awe and admiration in his eyes. As she slipped it on, she could hear the whispers starting. Not cruel laughter this time, but amazed murmurs of respect. "That was incredible," Oliver said softly. "How did you—" "8 years of Taekwondo," Bryn replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I just never had a reason to use it before." A new beginning. By Monday morning, everything had changed. Word of the cafeteria incident had spread through the school like wildfire, growing more elaborate with each telling. Some versions had Bryn throwing Brett through a window. Others claimed she had taken on the entire football team. The truth was impressive enough. Quiet, invisible Bryn Castellanos had single-handedly dismantled the school's most notorious bullies without breaking a sweat. Brett himself was notably subdued. The humiliation of being beaten by someone half his size had clearly shaken him, and he seemed to understand that any attempt at retaliation would only make him look worse. When their paths crossed in the hallway, he looked away first. Jake and Kyle, meanwhile, had apparently developed a sudden interest in avoiding Bryn altogether. They would literally cross to the other side of the hall when they saw her coming, and their cruel comments had dried up completely. But the most significant change was in how the other students treated her. Teachers, who had never noticed her before, were suddenly calling on her in class. Classmates who had looked right through her for months were offering friendly smiles and starting conversations. Even the popular kids seemed to view her with a mixture of respect and curiosity. "I heard you've been doing martial arts for years," said Jessica Martinez, one of the student council members, as she sat down next to Bryn at lunch. "That's so cool. Do you compete or anything?" "Sometimes," Bryn replied, still adjusting to being the center of positive attention. "I mostly just enjoy the training." "Well, if you ever want to join the self-defense club, we'd love to have you," Jessica said. "Actually, we'd love to have you teach some classes if you're interested." Oliver appeared at their table with his lunch tray, grinning widely. "Mind if I sit with the local legend?" Bryn felt herself blushing, but gestured to the empty chair beside her. "I'm not a legend. Are you kidding?" Oliver laughed. "You're all anyone's talking about. That kick was like something out of an action movie." "I just did what I had to do," Bryn said quietly. "No," Oliver said, his expression growing serious. "You did what was right. Brett and his friends have been tormenting people for years, and everyone just accepted it. You showed them that they don't have to." As if to prove his point, a sophomore girl Bryn didn't recognize approached their table. "Excuse me?" she said nervously. "Are you Bryn Castellanos?" Bryn nodded, and the girl's face broke into a relieved smile. "I just wanted to thank you," she said. "Jake Morrison has been making my life hell since the beginning of the year, but today he actually apologized to me. I think you changed something." After the girl left, Bryn sat in thoughtful silence. She had always believed that using her martial arts skills would make her no better than the bullies themselves. But Master Kim had taught her that true strength came from protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Maybe in standing up to Brett and his friends, she had done exactly that. The final confirmation came the following Friday. Exactly 1 week after the cafeteria incident, Bryn was at her locker after school when she sensed someone approaching. She turned to find Brett standing a few feet away, alone for once and looking uncomfortable. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked. Bryn closed her locker and waited. "I wanted to apologize," Brett said, the words coming out stilted and rehearsed. "What I did to you, what we did, it wasn't okay." "No, it wasn't," Bryn agreed. Brett shifted his weight from foot to foot. "I guess I never thought about how it felt from the other side being humiliated like that in front of everyone." He trailed off, then met her eyes. "I get it now." "Do you?" Bryn asked. "Yeah," Brett said quietly. "I do. And it won't happen again to you or anyone else." Bryn studied his face, looking for signs of deception or calculation, but all she saw was genuine remorse and what might have been the beginning of wisdom. "Good," she said simply. Brett nodded and started to walk away, then turned back. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you didn't really hurt me. You could have, couldn't you?" "Yes," Bryn said, "but that wouldn't have made me any better than you." As Brett walked away, Bryn felt a sense of completion that had nothing to do with revenge or victory. She had faced her tormentors and discovered that she was stronger than she had ever imagined, not because of her martial arts skills, but because of her ability to choose mercy over violence, justice over revenge. Oliver appeared at her side as if he had been waiting for the conversation to end. "Ready for that trip to the Science Museum?" he asked with a smile. Bryn shouldered her bag and smiled back. For the first time since starting at Lincoln Memorial High School, she felt like she truly belonged. "Ready?" she said, and meant it.